And we're going to now continue to have, I think, a very interesting discussion here on, I think, a real crazy situation that has been developing with the Louisiana Federation of Republican Women. And wanted to bring on someone who is a real leader in many of these organizations and a former vice president of the East Baton Rouge Republican Women's Club and a fundraiser for the Louisiana Federation of Republican Women, but was recently kicked out of a meeting. And want to get the details, get the scoop. Christy Hike is joining us here on the Ringside Politics program. And Christy, how are you? Good morning. Welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. Thank you so much. Nice to be here with you again.
Yeah, great to have you on the program again. And your history is pretty clear. You've been an activist, very involved, doing good work for the Republican Women's Clubs, correct?
I have indeed for the past 2 years.
So you've been working hard, no compensation, right? You've been just volunteering your time, correct?
That's right, Jeff. I started doing this. My friend Katie Alexander and I joined our local club because we were activists working on all of these, the multitude of issues that come at us at lightning speed, it seems. In the last few years, we went to the legislature every day when they were in session, just watching these bills going through, trying to make our legislators aware of everything that they were going to be voting into law or not. And so Katie and I joined to have a louder voice and a stronger voice. Yeah. We joined our local Republican Women's Club, to try to have a louder voice truth. And so
Great.
That was where.
And obviously they valued your membership because you were soon elected vice president, right?
That's right. I was asked by the current president at the time if I would take the nomination to fill her seat when she vacated it. And I said, I'm a little too new to the organization. I'm not sure that would be okay. And she said, no, you need to do this. And as it turns out, the other person on the ballot read the bylaws and called the LFRW president and said, no one can be in the presidential seat unless they've been on the executive board for at least 6 months or in the club for at least 6 months. I'm sorry. So that effectively eliminated me for president, and then I became vice president.
So you became vice president, been serving in that role, and obviously doing work that they considered valuable. And then how did you get on the just sort of persona non grata list, Christy Hike? What did you do?
Great question. I'm still asking it every day. I don't know what I did, but I have an idea, Jeff. And I was asked to run for something else within the LFRW. That's the state level of the Louisiana Federation of Republican Women. So I was asked to run for an office there. And in my 3-minute speech with regards to that campaign, I used my time, instead of talking about running for this position, I used my time to talk about the work that I and my group have been doing with regards to election integrity. And I told a story about Dr. Douglas Frank sitting with me and our Secretary of State, asking our Secretary of State's permission to have a white hat hacker try to hack into our election management system in real time. And our Secretary of State granted the permission, and the hacker was successful in a 3-minute time frame, which was quite shocking, I think, to our secretary. And he admitted as much and said, I guess that's what I needed to hear. Well, I related that story in my, quote, campaign speech to the women there present, probably about 200 women. And immediately after, I got a call that the powers that be were deluged. I don't know what she considers a deluge, but got calls from the Louisiana Federation of Women that I had thrown our Secretary of State under the bus with my story, which I absolutely did not. I merely related a factual situation.
Okay, so let's go back to that story, and then I want to hear more about how you got on the wrong side of this. So you had a meeting at your house with the Secretary of State, yourself, and another individual. Who was the other person?
Dr. Douglas Frank, who is a Nobel laureate mathematician. He's an incredibly intelligent person. He's off the
Okay.
charts, and he has been doing this election integrity research for 3 years at least, and
Okay.
he is high demand, going around the states nationally. He's a nationally known figure,
Okay.
and anyone who's doing the deep dive on election integrity knows this person. He's a rock star. So he
Okay.
came in at
S-
the group's
So
request
you had them
to
all
meet.
in your house, and the purpose was to show the Secretary of State, hey, our elections can be hacked into, right?
Absolutely.
So you all had some person on the outside, a quote unquote white hat hacker, who showed Dr. Frank, showed you, showed the Secretary of State that you called it the election management system could be hacked into from the outside?
Correct. And the person who did it is the person who was in charge at one time, quite recently, of keeping the satellites in good working order, the satellites that control the nuclear button code.
Oh my
So the
gosh.
guy is pretty
So
adept at computer.
So after seeing that our system could be hacked into, I guess you and Dr. Frank probably expected, well, our Secretary of State's going to take immediate action to rectify this problem. And what has he done to solve this problem, Christy?
Well, we were under that impression because he was so profoundly moved by the situation. It was obvious. And so we privately and professionally, I and my group, continued to work with the secretary, and he, severed ties with ERIC. If you don't know what that is, it's a voter roll cleaning system. Ostensibly cleans our voter rolls. 31 states were contracted with it. We were one. But when our group brought the information to the Secretary of State about the nefarious aspect of ERIC, in that it does use the names that it gleans from the voter rolls to cheat, and it's George Soros funded. The Secretary did his own due diligence and then severed ties. And he was the first Secretary of State and the only one for a very long time until quite recently to have done so. So we were under the impression that he was working with us. He gave every appearance of working with us, and it seems like he was until he wasn't. And the way that
Well,
that
wait,
we,
well, I mean,
we, we
the system was hacked into. I mean, you would have thought that would have sent up alarm bells, and okay, so we got rid of Eric, but anything else done to prevent our system from being
no.
hacked into? No. Okay.
No, and quite honestly, he seems to have done sort of an about face, as if he never heard any of the national experts that we brought to him, or heard any of the, never sat in my dining room with Dr. Frank and had that happen, because as of October, my phone was blowing up. He was actually about to dance at our local fundraiser, the East Baton Rouge Republican Women's Boogie Bash. He was a dancer with his wife, and my phone blew up that night with people from North Louisiana telling me that he had a few days before been at their meeting saying that there was no election fraud in Louisiana. That was only in the swing states, even though we have the self-same Dominion machines as they. And that was the first time I heard that he had actively gone somewhere and said, we don't have any fraud, because when we began working with him, he stopped saying that. He would still tout the Heritage Foundation survey that said that we're, number 7th in the nation with regards to best practices, et cetera. But that's really just a matter of them calling the office and saying, hey, do you guys do this? Yes. Check. Hey, do you guys? Yes. Check. I mean, that was my understanding of how that survey works. So, and when you're comparing it to the rest of the corrupt states, this number 7 ranking doesn't sound so good. And that was actually a 75% grade, which, what is that, a C? I don't even know. They got F's
Yeah.
on a lot of other.
C. Right. Yeah. D. Some kind. 74, I guess, was a D. So, all right, hang on, because I want to hear more. We'll take a brief time out. Chrissy Hike is with us. She'll tell us more about what's going on here with this controversy swirling around the Louisiana Federation of Republican Women and our elections, and trying to get to the truth of what's going on with our elections, and what we can do to clean things up, and why there's so much resistance to that. 504-556-9696, our talk line. It's Ringside Politics right here on WGSO. Jeff Carrera with you. We'll be right back. Hi, we're back. Christy Hike is with us, former chief fundraiser for the LFRW, vice president of the East Baton Rouge Republican Women's Club, and has been running into some problems with the club concerning her push for election integrity here in the state. You would think everyone would rally behind that and get involved and be excited about the work you're doing. Obviously not. So that raises a lot of questions as to why. So, Christy, if we could go back to the story, you told everyone what happened in your house and the response since then and the real issues you have about our elections here in Louisiana. And, you know, you've been pushing these issues to try to clean up our elections and make sure we have honest elections in the state, which is something that is a very worthwhile goal. And why did Louisiana Republican Federation of Women, Louisiana Federation of Republican Women have such a problem with that?
Well, you know, we can only surmise, but what I will tell you is that Dr. Randy Russ, who is part of our team, has put together, we have all put together this very informative presentation. It's facts only, nothing but the facts, ma'am. Dr. Russ goes around where he's invited only and delivers this presentation about election integrity or election fraud, if you will. In the nation and specifically here in our state. And on January 11th, the newly elected president of LFRW sent a threatening letter to the Republican women's clubs across the state that they shouldn't allow Dr. Russ to give his presentation at their meetings. And if you'll allow me, I'll read a short excerpt from that letter.
Sure.
Jeff.
Sure.
The LFR quote, this is a quote from the letter. LFRW does not, and the not is in caps, support this program or the mission these individuals are promoting as it goes against our policies and procedures. This presentation is intent on slandering Secretary of State Kyle Ardoin with propaganda. If your club is approached with presenting this program and individuals to your club members, you are advised to not allow it as it will put your club in jeopardy of disciplinary action by the LFRW Executive Committee, unquote.
Now,
so,
you were mentioned in that letter as well, correct?
Yes, I was. My name was mentioned. She said Christy Hike and Lenore Whitney have closely aligned themselves with this group, as the article from the Advocate attached explains. Please read it entirely. Now, I don't know about you, Jeff, but the Advocate as a point of reference for anything factual, not
that's
my
pretty.
source.
That's pathetic that a Republican group would use the Advocate as a source for their edicts, and that's really pitiful. Pitiful. So all of this was, and Lenore Whitney's a national committee woman. So
yes,
they're saying the national committee woman for the Republican Party can't be invited to any LFRW club meetings? Is that what she's saying?
Well, they're not saying that. She's saying that we have aligned ourselves with this election integrity group. And yes, it's our group. So we are part of it, founding members. I mean, it is what it is. And the fact that our names were mentioned, you have to ask yourself, why? Why? And first, Lenore's mind, why? I'm nobody. I was mentioned in that Advocate, in the article Advocate as well. My name was mentioned.
Yeah, right.
And why is that? I don't really understand.
Well,
but
the whole premise of the Advocate article was that these bunch of troublemakers are trying to raise all these unfounded concerns about elections, part of the same wacky group of Trump supporters that are making unfounded claims about crystal clear elections that are pure as a driven snow and no problems. Y'all are just conspiracy theorists, and you need to be just sort of put to the side and kept quiet because no problem, nothing to see here, everything's great.
Close the curtain.
Right.
So,
yeah.
So on that note, put aside, very appropriately, I think it's time to read the email that I got from Robbie Dyer on January 24th.
To let people know, this is the president of the Louisiana Federation of Republican Women. Okay, go ahead. Tell
That
us.
That is correct. Dear Mrs. Hike, thank you for your interest in membership in the Louisiana Federation of Republican Women. LFRW is a private organization and membership is not guaranteed to all applicants. Your membership ended December 31st, 2022. At this time, your membership beyond that date has been declined. We wish you the best in your future endeavors, Robbie Dyer. Well, I received this and thought to myself, I have not expressed interest in membership in the Louisiana Federation of Republican Women, but yet she's thanking me for my interest and declining my membership, which I didn't even
Renewal.
ask. Right, that's
Well,
correct.
you were already a member, right? And you were,
That's right.
okay,
Right.
already a member. Okay.
Typically, I was a member until my membership expired, as did everyone's, December 31st. But what we all do, and it's no exception, unless you have some people who get on it right away, but the majority of our membership at the January luncheon renews their LFRW membership. That's just what we always do. So
Right.
all of us, myself included, go and renew my membership, because I will tell you that this email to me telling me my membership request, which I didn't make, had been declined, gave me no grounds whatsoever except that it was her executive decision to decline a request that I would make because she can. It's a private club. She can do that. But there was no reason given.
So you got this letter, but you decided, well, I'm going to go to the next meeting of the LFRW, your local club, right? And that was held last Thursday?
This past Thursday, that's right.
So you decide to go along with Katie Alexander, correct? Your friend, and we've had her husband on the program many times, Chris Alexander of lacag.org, and we recommend folks support that organization. So you all go there to attend the meeting, and normally you'd go to the meeting, it'd be no big deal, but tell us what happened.
Well, it's quite interesting. On my Representative Kathy Edmondson rode with me to the meeting, as she frequently is one of our guests and attends our luncheon. So she and I rode together to the meeting, and as we're riding there, we're both of us getting all of these texts saying that Debbie Keeney, who is the Region 6 Vice President of the LFRW, is sitting outside with 5 sheriff's officers, and they're waiting for us, for me and for Katie. And one thing I need to say in an aside, the night before this meeting, Katie Alexander was sent the exact same missive that I was sent from Robbie Dyer in an email in a text, except Debbie Keeney signed it. And no grounds were given, just, your membership request, which she had not made either, has been declined.
Okay.
So we're on a meeting, and we're getting this intel that there are 5 sheriffs waiting for us with Debbie Keeney. Okay, well, I don't know what that means, but it looks like it's not going to be good, and I'm not really sure why. So when we get there, we kind of just walk in. I don't think they saw us, and Debbie wasn't outside, but when we got in, I was signing in at the check-in table, and the largest of the deputies, or I found out later their rankings, but at the time I thought he was a deputy, came in and said, I'm sorry, you can't be here, to me. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, you're not a member. And I said, oh, yes, I am. And he said, no, please step out. And I said, of course, I'll step outside. So Katie and I both stepped outside, and he said, I said, officer, can you tell me what the situation is here, because I'm very confused. And he said, well, you're no longer a member. And I said, well, I don't have any proof of not being a member. Do you have any proof of us not being members? And he said, did you pay your dues for the year for LFRW? Now, he's been briefed, okay? No, we haven't yet. Tradition is we pay at this particular luncheon, and that's what I intend to do.
Right.
You can't.
Yeah.
You can't. You're not a member. I said, well, sir, a lot of people in that room are not members. There are a lot of men in there, and they're not members, but they're allowed to have lunch. I said, we've already paid for our lunch. If you're saying we're not members, okay, but can we have our lunch? Nope, you can't go in. It's a private club, and they don't want you in there. Oh, okay.
That's the whole thing. They didn't want you in there. So
correct.
What happened to the representative, Representative Edmondson? Did they throw her out too?
Kathy Edmondson was allowed to go in because they have no beef with her. Katie and I proceeded to stand outside. We found out that those officers, we found out through a different source, that the officers who were there were 3 captains and 2 lieutenants. Now, Jeff, I don't know about you, but, I found out that that's a lot of firepower. That's a lot of strong, presence for 2
For an
little
area that
women.
has a lot of crime, right? I mean, shouldn't they be worried about crime? I mean, shouldn't they be trying to keep the community safe? I mean, were you guys going to be committing any massive crimes in there? I mean, just
I'm
talking
not
about election
sure what they
integrity?
were told. I'm not really sure what they were told when they were called. Who knows what they were told, because it
Yeah,
seems ludicrous.
right.
But we had a very conversation with them all, and I said, I'm sorry, you guys. I really respect the work that you do every day, putting your life in harm's way to keep us safe and to keep our streets free of crime.
Yeah,
But I'm afraid that you've been called here today to be,
misled.
pawns in a political game, because this is crazy. And, as the more we spoke with them, the more it dawned on them. You could see it in their eyes, the realization that, oh my gosh, this is crazy. I said, because you're taking what the 2 women in there are telling you over, what we're telling you. I mean, who are you going to believe? They told us that they were told that we had gotten in the mail certified letters or registered letters telling us that we were no longer members, which is absolutely not true. And so we asked them if they had proof of that or proof of anything that said we were no longer members, and they did not.
All right. Hang on, Christy. We'll come back and wrap it up with you and try to put a little final touch on what here happened, which is pretty amazing. Christy Hike with us, talking about what happened to her and what is going on here concerning elections in Louisiana, where we go from here. It's Ringside on WGSO. Jeff Career with you. Quick time out. Let's get the latest from Louisiana Radio Network. We'll be right back. And it's here with our special guest, Christy Hike, former VP of the East Baton Rouge Republican Women's Club, who was recently kicked out of their meeting, has been working tirelessly with some really good folks to try to spread the word about how we can fix our elections here in Louisiana. Dr. Randy Russ and John Scanlon. And here's what our friend Doug is writing. Jeff, why does Ardoin stonewall cleaning the voter rolls? This is huge. Tells you how the phantom votes are stored. It begs a real question. Who is he aligned with? Jeff, I'm sick of these cowards. Sick of these cowards who refuse to answer questions or debate voter fraud possibilities. Get out of politics if you're scared of the questions. So glad Christy exposed these cowardly weasels on your show today. So that's Doug's comments. And Christy, as we conclude here, this is an amazing story, and obviously something that a lot of people are shocked to hear, that this is what is going on. What do you think all this means now that you've been involved in this and sort of been getting this abuse and mistreatment just because of your principles and trying to fight for clean elections? What does it tell you?
Well, it tells me, I've always said when you're over the target, you become a target. I think that there's a lot of truth to that. Make of that what you will. But I will say that my being attacked by the Louisiana Federation of Republican Women is because they attacked me publicly. I'm responding to that attack by telling the story. I don't want to be a public figure. This is not something I aspire to. But I am an advocate for the truth. I always have been, and I always will be. I feel like I've been given that task by a higher authority my whole life. And so it's imperative for my own personal sense of worth to tell nothing but the truth. And so that's what I'm doing. That's my life goal. That's my mission. And I feel like I'm being used as his instrument to do that. That's how I feel. So I will say this. Whenever Robbie Dyer's letter went out to the membership in every club in the state, I think the majority of women saw through it and realized it for what it was, a letter of censorship and a letter of threat. And Jeff, this is what happens in, communist China and what happened during the Third Reich and Nazi Germany, censorship of factual information, because the narrative cannot then be given as they choose it, the truth out, and it's over for them. So So I just feel like, to let you know, there's a mass exodus of a lot of these women from these individual clubs. And on that day, Thursday of last week, my particular club, East Baton Rouge Republican Women, had a mass exodus. I don't know if the club has the ability to survive what happened on Thursday, because they saw through the shenanigans and the actual, it fell apart. There's a video of it, and it's really rather sad to watch. And I will also say that Kyle Ardoin had become a personal friend of Katie's and mine, because we worked very closely with him.
Right.
I think
Right.
he's a good man. I think he's a good man. I think he is, wants to do the right thing. I'm not sure if he can, whatever that means. I don't know. I'm just trying to figure it out. But it was a gut punch to me to find out that he was going back to square one and saying there's no election fraud.
So is he the one behind all this pressure on the LFRW to censor these issues? Obviously, it seems to me there's a connection there, that he doesn't want these individuals, doesn't want you bringing it up, doesn't want the presentation heard, doesn't allow the candidate running against him to appear, Brandon Trosclair, to appear at the club meetings. So, it certainly would seem like he could have a role here in what's going on.
Well, people are left to surmise what they will. I won't give my personal opinion, putting the facts out there, and then you can determine what you think the actuality is. So I will just say that it saddens me greatly, everything that's happened. And I just want, again, to get the truth out, and that is my ultimate goal, and I will do that no matter what happens.
So just to wrap up here, the bottom line is, can our listeners feel comfortable about the state of our elections here in Louisiana?
Absolutely not. And it's not even to do with the clerks of court, the registrars of voters, or the Secretary of State. These are nefarious actors, maybe from within, but mainly from without. We know that now. We know that the majority of the ownership in the legacy vendors who make any of the machines, and there are only 4 in this country that make voting machines, is China ownership. They won't disclose their ownership, but we know that. We've got the facts. And why won't you disclose your ownership? What are you hiding? There's so many things that are hidden. The information is proprietary. When you vote on a Dominion machine, when you go and you push that button, Jeff, do you get a printout of how you voted? No, there's no audit. There's no audit. There's a huge problem, and that's only one of the multitude of problems that machines have. And without going into the weeds, I'll tell you, no, we don't any machines.
We have all Dominion voting machines in Louisiana, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And we've heard promises of paper ballots. Is there any movement toward paper ballots in Louisiana?
Well, the Secretary of State is now saying that we will have probably a component of paper ballots, but probably in conjunction with ballot marking devices, which is a BMD. That is the acronym. And J. Alex Halderman, the professor, who is actually a Democrat, came to our Voting Systems Commission meeting, one of them, and testified that the ballot marking devices are probably, out of all the machinery that you can use for voting, the most egregious in respect that they are the most susceptible
fraudulent
to they're fraud. Yes.
Yeah.
None of them.
And that's what he says we're going to be moving toward.
That's what he's touting.
Okay. Why can't we just go to paper ballots only?
Well, because people like the clerk of court of St. Tammany, Melissa Henry, and her friends are saying that if they have to count paper ballots, their fingers will bleed. So I'm not really sure if that's the excuse that they really are using. But it's kind of.
How did we do it in the past? Didn't they have to count ballots? Wasn't that done up until we had these dreaded machines?
Yeah, Abraham Lincoln got his results of his presidential election back in one night, okay? He got it that night. Like ballots.
And there were,
I know it's fewer people, but it doesn't matter. We have people, Jeff, that would volunteer in droves to count paper ballots. Patriots, people make it an election day again. Let's have a holiday. Let's all get together and work toward integrity. They would do it in a heartbeat. They want.
Yes. They don't want
and
us to do it. They don't want that, and that's why they're fighting tooth and nail against it. And finally, voter rolls.
oh,
Can all of us feel secure that our voter rolls are accurate and honest here in Louisiana?
if you like dead people voting and people living in empty lots and they moved 10 years ago and voting, that's your way to to get a good vote. But I'm telling you,
Yeah.
these canvases that we are doing are turning up the most insane things, and our Secretary of State says he has no power to clean the rolls. I don't really understand that. He's not able to explain it to my satisfaction, and I think that right there is evidence of fraud. The fact, not that he's committing it, but just that the voter rolls are absolutely filthy, and to the tune of thousands of votes that
And
should
Dr.
not.
Russ and John Scanlon and the group, I'm sure you were involved in that, the Canvass Ascension Paris, discovered that, right? I
Correct.
mean, 20% at
They,
least were
that's
were
exactly.
fraudulent. Okay.
That's right. And they just did another canvas this past weekend, and I'm getting the results today. And it was the exact same thing. They found the same things, and so all of this adds up to a big question mark. Like where? So you've got the machines, you've got the dirty voter rolls. You've got a whole plethora of reasons why we don't have free and fair elections. And when you add them all up, Jeff, it's a bad situation for our state.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're trying to sound the alarm, and we're going to keep doing it. And it is something that has to be done. I think it's the top priority. So, Christy, we'll visit again soon. Thank you for your work. Thank you for sharing your story. Sorry about what happened to you, but I think it does mean you're getting close to really exposing something big, and they want to stop you. So I'm glad you're moving forward. Thanks so
Thank
much,
you.
Christy Hike, with us. Appreciate you and your work and the whole team involved in this. We'll take a brief time.